Hi, I'm Mike, the owner of Rock Island Growth Specialist, a small business hype man and marketing firm located in Canton, Ohio. And we are bringing you all the people, organizations, and events that make Canton and all of Stark County great. This is the Rock Island Experience. It is a 0-degree day here in downtown Canton, but that is not stopping us from bringing you one of the most iconic organizations that our community has to offer. This is the Canton Palace Theatre. So we are here inside the Palace Theatre, and in my opinion, this organization and this building is one of the gems, not just of downtown Canton, but Stark County as a whole. And we're very, very lucky at the fact that we're going to be around in November of 2026 when this theater celebrates their 100th birthday party. And so we're actually going to take you upstairs, introduce you to Georgia, their executive director, and find out more about this amazing building, its history, and what's to come. Let's go check it out. So I am here with Georgia Paxos, the executive director of the Canton Palace Theatre. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for being here.
I always love visiting this great theater, and it's always a great experience every time. So if people from Stark County are living under a rock and don't know what the Canton Palace Theatre is, give people a little bit of a history of this building.
And that's okay, because sometimes you take for granted what's readily available to you.
Right.
The Canton Palace Theatre has been at the corner of Market and 6th for almost 100 years. It was built as a vaudeville theater, so that meant there were a variety of performers that graced the stage. And then came the silent films, and then came the talking films. And at that time, the movie companies owned the movie theaters. So if you wanted to see a Warner Brothers film, you went to a theater that was owned by Warner Brothers. If you wanted to see a Disney film, you came here to the Canton Palace Theatre, because for a time the theater was managed and owned by the Walt Disney Company.
Okay.
Which means when Pinocchio came out for its world premiere in 1940, Walt Disney walked out on the stage and introduced Pinocchio to Northeast Ohio.
That's really cool.
So much history in this building. Lots of great memories. Unfortunately, the theater closed in 1976 on its 50th anniversary and reopened 4 years later as the Canton Palace Theatre Association. So we are a nonprofit organization. We have a 15-member board of directors. We have 4 full-time staff members here and some amazing volunteers, about 200 of them that help us run our events here at the theater.
So you mentioned we're coming very close, and I mentioned it a little bit earlier, to the 100th anniversary. So we've talked a little bit about the past. Let's tell people a little bit about the future of the theater and what the organization has planned.
So for our centennial celebration, we announced in October of 2023 our centennial expansion project. It's a $16.3 million project to enhance the accessibility of the building. The theater was built in 1926. They didn't really have to think of a lot of things because it wasn't a thing back then, but now we do. So we want to make sure that all parts of our community are able to come and enjoy a performance here at the Palace, and a performance and watching it from the balcony. So making the balcony accessible with an elevator, adding additional handicap seating, expanding out our stage so that we can provide larger shows and more events here to our community, adding in a second lobby along 6th Street to provide more access to concession stands and more bathrooms. Sometimes our existing lobby gets extremely tight, and so being able to spread out, adding some features for our artists down in our dressing rooms, expanding out the dressing rooms, adding in a loading dock area so that we don't have to shut down 6th Street anymore when we have performances here at the Palace. So it's really checking the boxes of all the things that our attendees wish that we had, what our renters and our promoters wished we had, and knowing that we can do so much more for our community with an expanded facility.
And if you want to learn more about the capital project, we'll put a link down in the the comments of this section are in the bio of
Yes,
the section.
it's CantonPalace100.com. It has all the information you can ask for the project. It's got renderings and pictures and all the financial information. It's a big undertaking, but we're super excited, and the support has been incredible thus far. We're halfway through our funding and halfway to go, and we want to unveil it for our 100th anniversary, so we need everybody's support to make that happen.
So we're here for an experience.
Yes.
What are we learning today?
I'm going to hand you over to Jay Spencer, our resident organist, and he's going to take it from here.
Well, let's head on down to the stage and meet Jay. All right, so I am here with the official Canton Palace Theatre organist and downtown Canton legend, the great Jay Spencer.
Oh, well, the great.
Jay Spencer's hype man here. How are you, buddy?
I'm good. I'm good.
So
Glad to have you here.
Thank you for having me. This
Sure.
is awesome. So you have been a longtime volunteer of the Palace.
I have.
Since the 80s, did I get that right?
About 87, yeah.
87. So if you've come to any show in the last 40 years of the Palace, you know Jay is the person that brings each and every show to life here with the Kilgan. And so Jay, why don't you kind of go over a little bit what we're learning today?
Well, I'm going to show you exactly, because a lot of people don't understand how the Kilgan actually works.
Yes.
Because most questions I get are like, well, where are the speakers? Or, well, does it move or can it move, whatever. So,
had a lot of those same questions before we started filming.
Yeah.
We learned a lot.
So this is an original Kilgan theater pipe organ. So that means it was built in 1926 by the Kilgan Organ Company in St. Louis, and it was installed in the palace when the palace opened. So during building, the organ was installed in the organ chambers up over our heads on each side of the wall. So when you come into the theater, and you're looking at stage, on each side you'll see little balconies and with curtains behind. Well, behind those curtains is the organ.
Yes.
So not speakers, but pipes. So there are metal and wood pipes and drums and different sound making devices, all run by air. And there's a giant blower downstairs by the dressing rooms that forces the wind up through the pipes and makes the sound. And so what you're looking at on the stage is just the control panel.
Okay.
So
100-year-old technology at its finest,
Yes.
still working today.
Still working.
In 2025.
Yes.
Well, great. Let's check it out.
Okay. So what we have, the Kilgan is actually, as theater organs go, is relatively small. It's considered 3 manuals. You can see three keyboards and a pedal board. And it's known as 11 ranks of pipes. So they're up in the chambers, there are 11 sets of 66 pipes. So if you do the math, it's like 700 pipes or something. And it also has some sound effect things on. So Mike, if you play down here, every once in a while, that's a Chinese block. So in a silent movie, if somebody's going like that, they would hit their head on something, you'd hear the Chinese block. And then the sand block, it's a little harder to hear.
Yeah.
And then sleigh bells.
So this was really coming into effect back in the silent movie era.
Well, that's what it was built for.
Yes.
And then hit that tambourine. And when the Indians come in, the tom-toms and the cymbal. And you hear the snare.
Yeah.
And if you'll hit, see that pedal down on the far side?
This one?
Down here, I'll show you. Let's see here. It has you could hit that and it would cymbal and the bass drum would hit afterwards.
Okay.
It has a thing called a chrysoglot, and it has a harp.
Oh, and it just auto does it.
Oh, and here's that again. And then, so it had, and also each of those white buttons on the side, just hit that bottom one. Yeah, right, see the one that says
This
bird?
bird?
Yeah, so that's the bird. And then there's a siren and my favorite,
The gong.
the gong, yep. And so there actually is a gong up there. It's about this big around. And there's a siren, and it's a bird, it's a pipe with glycerin in it.
Okay.
And so when you hit that, it bubbles the wind up through the glycerin and makes the sound of the bird.
That's interesting.
So as we were saying, the organ was built for silent movies.
Yes.
That's the whole reason it's here, is because when the Palace opened in 1926, there was an orchestra of 16 people here and the organ. So there was a fellow named Banks Kennedy who was the first guy who played here. And Banks was kind of a star in Chicago, and he was brought in by the Palace organization to open the theater as kind of like I don't want to say gimmick, but he was a draw. So
Okay.
people knew that he was kind of a big star. And so when you came to the movies on opening night, say at the Palace, you would hear Banks play the organ, you would hear the Palace Orchestra, you'd see a silent short and a silent feature, and then you saw 3 vaudeville acts. So there was, I think the first night there was a ballroom dance act, a singer, and a magician, I believe, opening night. So you got all that for your quarter or whatever it was you paid. And, but the organ was always kind of like center, it was off to the side on the stage.
Key feature.
Yep, but after a while, of course, the orchestra got a little expensive to pay 16 people to play. So the organ was able to take the place of all those people. So Banks could play, Banks was here for a couple years, till about 28. And so he was able to play for the silents, play for the features, and do separate, he could do, solos and pre-show music just like we do now. So the same thing. Yeah. And what you're hearing, what you hear out of the organ now is essentially the same as what they heard 100 years ago when they were sitting here. It hasn't changed. The organ hasn't changed.
Well, one of the things I thought was interesting, I asked you, is it expensive to fix? Because this is the original, and you kind of said, no, they still make organs exactly, almost exactly
I don't
the
want to say
same.
it's not expensive to fix, because it
Well,
is expensive
yes.
to fix. But
Not
it's
hard is what I said, not hard to find parts.
Right, but Charlie Keg Organ in Hartville has been taking care of this for 50 years. And so Charlie will come in, and he still builds pipe organs for churches and different things.
Okay.
And so the pieces parts that operate the organ, the blower, the pipes, the wood chests that supply the air up into the pipes is essentially the same technology. So if something would break, we can change that, or at least that.
That's interesting.
But the pipes that are up there were up there in 1926. And that's the key. That's what makes the sound. And that's why if you hear this pipe organ here, if you go to another theater and hear a different one, it'll sound different because it's a different beast completely. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And you've got, let's see, you've got other things. Glockenspiel and a xylophone. And so he was able
Lots of
to
different
make, he
things.
made a lot of different sounds with the
organ that
Yeah, with the
really would
organ,
have brought
yeah.
the movie to
Yeah.
life back in the silent
Yeah.
movie days.
And originally, the organ was operated on its own. So nowadays, since we have the entire stage comes up and down, the organ in 26 and up until about 1990 was on its own elevator off to the side on the stage. So there was up, stop, and down buttons on the console.
Oh, so you would bring it up and down directly from there.
Exactly. You hit the up and it would come up, and it was on its own little elevator, so it would come up and down by itself. But then that disappeared with the new stage.
Right.
So now we just hit the signal button, and it tells the guy backstage to bring it up or take it back down.
All right.
Yeah.
So modern technology on the organ,
That's
the signal,
right.
the signal button.
Signal button.
That's how much we've evolved
That's
over
right.
100 years
That's
of
right.
organs.
That's right. Oh, this is the important part.
Yes.
This is the last remaining Kilgan Theater pipe organ still playing in its original home anywhere in the universe.
I did know that.
Yep,
I did
that's
know that.
very important. We like to say
right
that.
here in Canton, Ohio,
Yep.
is the last OG
Right.
Kilgan organ.
That's right.
So just another
Yep.
thing that makes
That's
this
right.
building what I think, as I
Yep.
said earlier,
That's right.
gem of our community, which I
Yeah.
think is spectacular.
And a lot of people over the years have kept it here,
Yeah.
because it was played up through, I don't exactly know how often it was played in the 50s. I've heard people say it was played sometimes. And, but in the 60s, there was a guy from Orville that came over and helped kind of get it back in shape. It had some water damage, but he got it back in shape. Then Charlie came in, got it a little further, and then Bob Beck started playing it in 1980 when the theater reopened after its closing. And Bob played for years, and then I took over after Bob. So,
That sounds great.
yeah.
So what's the future plan? Are you training a new apprentice?
We
or?
do. We have a younger guy who's playing every once in a while. Yeah, and so it's same. Just keep it going. You know, there's always interest.
The Kilgan is in good hands.
That's right.
For the
That's
future
right. Hopefully another
generations.
100 years of
Yes,
Kilgan.
let's
so
hope.
Let's hope. Let's hope so.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and turn this back over to the expert and give you the chance to play another song for us.
Okay.
If you're okay
Awesome.
with that.
Oh, sure. Sure. Love to.
That's a wrap for us here at the Canton Palace Theatre. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into this fantastic organization as much as we did. And we'll see you next time on the Rock Island Experience.